to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Also like to remind everybody to put their phones on vibrate or off, please. Motion to approve the agenda, removing item A under new business. Move to approve. Second. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion to approve consent agenda. Move to approve. Oh, sorry. Public comment. Oh. Not much problem. Consent agenda. Move to approve. Second. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? New business. Consider improved material used for final trench backfill for the CDBG project.
Okay, added that, there's a couple pictures, or one picture in your packet, I don't know if you saw that. This is the fill requirements. We have the preliminary specs, and plan on bringing the specs for approval to the March 7th meeting. So we have to approve the specs, then it can go to bid, and hopefully get out for public hearing on February 22nd on paper. So anyway, the biggest thing, it's pretty common specs in there for all the, the pipes and all that kind of stuff. But the biggest thing that's always kind of been, I guess, the council decision and what they've always decided before was, if you look at the picture, the final trench backfill on sewer. It's always been, I guess, again, what I've been told is the council made a decision to go with all gravel with a roadstone instead of using native fill. So I just kind of want to understand, basically the difference is $20 to $25 a ton for gravel to go total fill. You're going to lose probably about $100,000, a little over $100,000 on the project just in gravel for that backfill. So you could do more with sewer if you didn't use as much gravel and use more native fill, but it's just kind of up to your decision, I guess, what you guys want to use for the final fill. I guess the difference in the past, probably the council can probably say stuff before, was with a special fill, if you didn't tamp it as much, whatever, then maybe the street will crack or something give way, if you didn't do it right.
But this is gonna be a project with an engineer overseeing the compaction and all that? Or?
Right, we put that into the compaction test. I mean, that would be all in there, that normal stuff. But so I just kind of want to get your opinion and see, your decision, because I have to give this base back to our engineer for what we're going to use for final fill, and then he'll put it in the specs, and that'll be that.
Is there going to be an engineer on these? And so many projects get done, they don't send an engineer or an inspector.
Well, we can request whatever we want. So I mean, we can work with Ryan Schrock, I can have him come in and do his tests and that kind of stuff, or we can require them to do their soil compaction test and send them in too. We got to require them to do that. So whatever we want to do, basically.
Is that part of the bid, or is that?
That'll be in the, right, that'll be in the specs, whatever we put in there. So, I mean, you could, basically, you probably save, if you save $100,000 on gravel, then you probably cost another, probably $25,000 to do this.
You can eliminate the gravel, but you want suitable material.
Native, yeah, whatever.
In.
Right. And there's a list based off the SUDOS, what material are required, it's approved for fill. And we have that.
Because that's where you lose your streets when you don't have the packed gravel.
So I guess just want to kind of decide where you want to go.
And then you might want to go ahead and put some roadstone on top.
Jeremy thought, because this is basically talks about the sewer, not supposed to water, but like on Parkview, we're going to do that. It's all basically kind of downhill. And they thought with that much gravel, you're almost creating a trench drain, and it's all going to come to a head down at the end of the street with all that water in there. So it's thinking sometimes the fill might be better to help with that water. So I don't know.
That's why you use roadstone instead of clean.
Right. So
You get enough fines in it right back.
So just kind of, I guess, you guys make a decision what you want.
In the past, I think it was recommended by French Reniker at one time to use roadstone as backfill. I think they also, if they have to dig something up, when they hit the roadstone, they know they're close to that pipe. It was an indicator for them, so.
I think another piece of it was if we're doing just small individual sewer cut-ins and stuff, water cut-ins and stuff, in the road that's already existing and then.
The smaller the hole, the more trouble you have trouble
Yeah.
getting backfill.
Right,
And those we were always requiring gravel all the way up.
Where you're opening the whole street up and you can
Yeah,
run a
you're able
roller
to
up and down
compact
it or a
it, yeah.
compactor. What is the, primary and secondary backfill material?
That's that's the north, like the gravel, so it's kind of in the specs there, but
Is that
that's,
sand or
Yeah, it's
a modified sub base?
yeah, all that stuff, yeah, based off of SUDOS, it's all off the, the state codes, it'd all be the
But what
normal.
is it? We don't know what the state code is.
Well, it's the gravel, it's the, I think it's on here.
It'd be a gravel on a certain
Right,
screen. They have a certain duration to the rock and durability and then it pass.
But it doesn't give you it doesn't give you the product that.
But it's a state requirement,
Yeah,
so
it's
they
all
have to.
You wouldn't understand it if they told you. 'Cause it'd be a
Yeah.
Class C3.
Yeah, exactly, that's what it is,
Durability
all those.
with,
and that's
car
actually,
seats, and then it'd have to,
Yeah.
it made a certain screen where somebody finds, go through.
actually on,
Basically, it usually works back to what they call modified sub.
yeah, class 1, 2, there's all different types of greasy soils and all different types of parts, but it's a list. They have an approved list of backfill and they have a list that's not approved of backfill type stuff, so the biggest
Don't
thing
you
is
think
watching.
it's a good idea to go with this on an open?
On an open trench, as long as the backfill is compacted.
Yeah.
I mean, not if they're just gonna.
We're not
haul it in
gonna
and
do
go
that
over
on
it.
little
No.
patches and stuff.
But yeah, a little
I like-
patch where you can't get in there and backfill, then you want road stone.
I like the idea of some roadstone, like what Earl said, usually if you're digging a hole and you hit rock, you're close to something.
Well, that's why I
That's
asked
it.
what this secondary backfill was.
Right, that's the 12-inch there, the
12
middle.
inches over the
Yeah.
pipe, so you're gonna have that before you hit the pipe.
Right.
If that's roadstone.
It is, yeah, it is.
Well, it's some sort of a stone.
Right,
okay.
so. Like I said, basically, yeah, everything, the secondary and down is all kind of really spec, is all the stone and normal stuff. The final trench backfill is the real kind of discretionary that you guys want to do. The other stuff, DNR and state required and all that. So,
I see no reason to not go with an earth and backfill as long as the compaction is verified.
I agree.
Motion to approve native backfill based on compaction.
I'd move to use earth and backfill with compaction.
Second that motion.
John,
Yes.
Scott,
Yes.
Jack,
Yes.
Darren,
Yes.
Earl,
Yes.
Make sure you put in there suitable.
Yeah, it'll be. I'll have it for you to prove too. It'll come back to you so you can see it and prove it. So.
Consider and approve construction debris disposal area.
So there again, so now we'll be, since like sewer, we're removing a lot of dirt when we go, because it's deep. And then also some of the road we gotta get rid of. So we're required to have a disposal site within 2 miles of the work site. So we're looking at, I know what the used before is the part of our out there at the lake, but I also know we have some other areas in town. So just kind of wanted to, I guess, feel you guys out and see where you thought you might want to use, some backfill. I know I've talked to Mike McClure out at North Car Wash. He'd take some out there. We have a spot down on, looks like they started doing backfill. There's a pipe in the ground over on Lake Road and Duffield corner, I think down there, that little area. And then also, of course, our ground we have over here now with the 2 homes spot, and there might be some, room for backfill, and there we start that project. So,
Got a hole across the street from City Hall.
yeah, got that too. So, yeah, so there's this place that's,
For some dirt too.
huh?
The fire station's looking for some dirt.
So I guess just wanted to, if you had any ideas or direction on where you definitely want some backfill, otherwise we'd explore areas, so. But, so just want to bring that up, so it's not I guess it's your discussion.
Once again, if there was suitable material in what they're excavating, you'd want to put somewhere where they can reclaim it.
Right, good backfilling versus the, of course, the concrete rebar, we want that, out of the way, but if it's a good,
Is Piper still letting stuff be dumped there behind the car wash?
bird.
Well, yeah, but Bruce was also doing stuff.
As far as I know, he is.
Yeah, he was
I know he
taking a
was
lot of
taking
dirt around.
concrete, if you tear a street up, they take it out there, because then he's been turned around selling for riprap.
Closer the better, I know, for, of course, the travel costs and all that, so. I don't know if there's decisions you made, but if there's any ideas that you definitely wanted, or idea we can,
So partially might be depending on what it is,
okay.
where it goes.
Just want to draw your attention that we're gonna be having that, so I know it's will come up.
Consider and approve incentive offer for Shopko Incorporated.
In your packet's a draft letter that still has to be reviewed by the property owner as well as the county. The county is looking to take an action on this next week at their Tuesday meeting. The incentive offer that is in this letter is along the lines of what has been discussed at the past meeting, which is to give 100% property tax abatement for fiscal years 2020, 2021, and 2022. Combined with the county doing the same thing for the same 3 years, the tax abatement would total about $16,250 in today's property tax, if it were on today's property tax bill. So overall, this proposal would be just shy of $50,000 over 3 years. We're also looking at the property owner. He's given indication that he would be willing to reduce his rent by $2,000 a month. But right now, what's stating this is that we're actually first in line because of timing, and asking for your concurrence on working with the county and with the property owner in submitting this to Shopko as an incentive to keep them here. And I assume that the incentive would be contingent upon the other two parties participating along the lines that it's been described here.
Sure appreciate you guys looking at it and trying to get something put together. Whether or not they take it, it's a good offer, I think.
It's my understanding that, in talking with them, that John Trotter is going up to Green Bay today to deliver the petition and probably give at least some indication that this is for them.
Good.
So basically, we just gotta send it to the building owner to have him
It's
okay it.
been emailed to them.
We okay it, and then present it to the supervisors Tuesday morning. If they approve it, we'll get a copy signed and send it off Tuesday.
Make a motion, we approve the incentive offer for Shopko contingent on the county and the property owner making the same offer, or whatever they're offering, so.
Just as a matter of fact, as Chris put on the board last week, our portion of this is about $11,000 on an annual basis under today's tax. That's $11,000 a year.
I'll second Darrell's motion.
Scott,
Yes.
Darren,
Yes.
John,
Yes.
Jack,
Yes.
Earl,
Yes.
Approve payment of invoice for fiscal year 2019 quarterly funding for Main Street.
Move to approve.
Second.
John,
Yes.
Jack,
Yes.
Scott,
Yes.
Earl,
Yes.
Darren,
Yes.
Approve payment of invoice for fiscal year 2019 quarterly funding for DCDC.
Move to approve.
Second.
Scott,
Yes.
Jack,
Yes.
John,
Yes.
Earl,
Yes.
Darren,
Yes.
Budget work session 6, final review prior to publication.
Okay, we sent out to you color-coded copies of the budget last Friday. There are a couple of minor changes that we need to make here. And I'm gonna draw your attention to the pink sheets, the expenditures. First of all, on the first page, in the Fire Protection Department, 001, 150, 60, 10 salaries, and the next one down, fees for calls. There was actually a duplication here. In the past, we had all of those salary numbers under one category. We segregated out the $15,000 as the chief's salary from the fees for fire calls that go to the rest of the officers. As a result, the 31.4 is reduced by $15,000 to $16,400. And that, on the next page, then reduces the overall fire protection total to $211,359. The $33,000 that was printed in here was on salaries was kind of a duplication. So this is actually bringing this budget down by obviously about $33,000. Let's see if there was an add-on into the Park and Rec Department of $7,500 under miscellaneous contracts. And I'm turning to the page here to get that account number. Yeah, it's 430, 6499.
Page 4.
Page 4. $7,500 added there. That is the match that we are making with the county to give money to the Mutual Center. The county approved adding $7,500 to help their capital improvement budget for the Mutual Center. We're doing the same, and that's added in here. Okay.
So that 64 is just gonna change to 75?
No, there's.
Just on top of that?
No, it's on top of that. We're talking about 6499, which is the line item. 430, 6499,
Oh, okay.
okay? And the other one that's described as line items here, but I want to draw your attention to page, it's the water fund. What are we saying? Was it 21, Brenda?
Look for 600.
I'm looking. I gotta get there. There it is. Okay, page 21. If you see at the top there, you see Water Revenue Bond Department. We're changing this around. And there's gonna be an expenditure from a transfer. We're setting up a bond payment fund that's different than this as far as accounting is concerned. What will happen is that we will take the revenues and apply them to a transfer that then would transfer to a debt service fund, because we right now are paying this $132,564 in principal and interest every year. We have to, it's been advised to us that we need to set up, if you will, a sinking fund. And in doing that, what we do is once a year at the beginning of the year, we would transfer this $132,564, and in 12 equal payments, there will be an automatic monthly deduction. And we're paying these two debt services off like it's a mortgage. The principal will increase a little bit with every payment, and the interest will shrink a little bit with every payment. But it's a level payment of $11,047 for the two combined. And we will be making those payments into the mid-2050s. So this is going to be an automatic setup and an automatic withdrawal. This does not change anything as far as it relates to our expenditure pattern or our revenue pattern. All it does is accounting for it differently. So that's the other major change in this budget. We can come back to that, but I want to make at least an introductory comment about the budget overall. And I'll draw your attention to this white piece of paper. This is our certification page. This is the one that you see in the front of the budget. And this will show all the taxes that we will be assessing this year as far as property taxes are concerned. You'll see down at the bottom, the total property tax rate is $17.42.150. Chris, hand one of those to Karen.
Go.
I have,
You got one? Okay.
I don't have all the other stuff, but I do this.
Okay. At any rate, this reflects the increase that we are taking with doing the bond project. If you remember, back in December, I made the estimation that the increase would be $17.47, so I was a nickel shy. And in fact, we hope that this number will go down a little bit more once that we sell the bonds next week. It's kind of a conservative estimate. We might get it down a few pennies. But the fact of the matter is that if you took the bond increase out of here, instead of the $14.06 that we had last year, or the year that we're in right now, our tax increase would have been to $14.24. In other words, 18-cent increase on the property taxes from last year. That represents a 1.2% increase. So it's a 1.2% increase plus what we're doing with the bond. 1.2% is about half of what cost of living is right now. Other than that, I can make some comments about going back to the pink sheets. The thing that's probably the most awkward with all of this is the computer programming machine developed FY19 projected budgets. These things are done just mathematically by recognizing that at the end of this month, 2/3 of the year, the fiscal year is completed. And in a sense, all these numbers reflect what a projection of what 2/3 of the fiscal year would be projected at a 12-month basis. And I think that this number is, these numbers are pretty inaccurate in some cases, particularly as it relates to some of the big activity. I'll draw your attention to a big one here on page 7, where we talk about transfers and general fund total, or general total, right in the middle of that page. You see that we got transfers year to date of $490,731. And because you just multiply this, or divide by 2 and multiply by 3, you get $763,000, which shows a huge increase as far as the budget is concerned. Well, that's erroneous. We're not going to do any more transfers. The transfers are going to stay at $490,000. If you look at that plus some capital expenditures, for instance, in the police department, where under capital equipment, very first page, you see $44,669 for capital equipment, the very last expenditure item. That's for the police car that's already been purchased. We're not going to purchase any more capital, but you see it was projected out to be $67,000. You got that kind of stuff going on here. When all is said and done, our projections are going to be pretty close in line to what the budget is. And I think if you look at the 19 budget versus the 20 budget, that might be a more accurate representation of what the differentiation in the overall activity in the general fund is. You see, last year we budgeted $2,044,000, almost $2,045,000. This year we budgeted $2,058,000, almost $2,059,000. It's just a $14,000 increase. That is one of the main reasons why our property taxes are going up hardly at all, other than for the debt service. So if you take those things into account, I think that you realize that while we've made some different changes as far as how we do the accounting, and we certainly have funded capital improvements without raising property taxes, with the one notable exception of street improvements, this budget is coming in about the same as what we did last year. From here, we'll answer any questions you got, any comments that you have. We have pretty much set this budget and we can make changes. And I sent the memo out earlier this week about what changes you can make after publication. Generally speaking, you can make reductions, but you can't make increases unless you want to change within programs, some expenditures from within a program. It all has to net out to be at least the equal, if not less. So, there it is.
Got your email about the $3,000 to $5,000 reduction.
Oh, I didn't talk about that, but
Was that just two of those headsets you were buying, or was there more?
that was the headsets. We were buying two. One for the power electric plant and one for the
Distribution. I didn't know you also had a set for the sewer department.
They already have.
They already have them.
Okay.
Like Darren, when I spoke with you Friday, that was one of the comments that you made, and so I was happy to bring that back, and it was reviewed. Yes. So thank you. Yeah.
I wonder if you would comment on the projected for revenues in 2020 for the TIF on page 5, Gary, or like 85,000. Do we expect that to go up if this housing initiative takes off?
Well, I think the thing that we have for TIF right now is going to be based upon if the housing takes off, it's going to be assumed that, recognizing this revenue, it's going to assume that we probably are trying to do some incentivization. Most of the housing opportunities that we're seeing right now are probably not going to be in the TIF district for new development. Chris, you identified how many lots were in TIF?
I think 5, but I think the other thing you have to consider is that TIF revenues won't come in, we have to certify the debt, we do that in December. And so there's a cycle, so we may not even hit this budget, right?
Okay.
Even if we have expenditures between now and December.
That's right.
Just like to see more of.
We're happy to go into detail about any line item, so if you see something you got questions on.
Didn't say that to you.
Nope.
Getting easy, isn't it, Chris?
Easier. Lots of good people worked on it.
Yeah, it was truly a team effort, and you all were greatly appreciated in the process. We spent a lot of hours here together. We've spent hours away from the chambers. Y'all have spent hours. I hope you had a chance to take a look. We try to give it our best go at providing you with information to the degree of detail that you had requested. So we have been listening. And it was great. I was able to connect with more than one of you Friday when I dropped things off. And I really appreciated that. And yeah, if you've got questions, let's ask and let's sort it out.
I think one of the things that we've done in this budget process is to actually clean up our books. We're hopeful that this time next year, this won't be as arduous a task, because one of the things that we were doing while we were putting together these numbers was figuring out which accounts are even active, how we had to move money from debt accounts into active accounts, set up new accounts for capital projects, which is going to be a new process for us on a continuous basis. I think we've met a lot of challenges. Brenda in particular has met a lot of challenges with working with this software system. And by the way, the company that manages the software system was sold last week. So we have always been talking about in the back of our minds that I don't know so much about this deal. And they've been promising us a rollout of upgraded software. Well, that rollout comes out in the terms that we just sold our company. So there may be a conversion here in our future, but trust me, if we do that, that is a incredibly time-consuming and expensive process. But we might not have any option. We're just now figuring out this one, and this one is clumsy and rather archaic, and I think the company that owns it or manages it recognize that too, and I think they just failed.
Found a buyer and took it.
It's not like this company hasn't just showed up. I mean, they've been around for a long time. But I think that the foundation of this has become dated, this whole programming thing. Just when we're starting to understand how to run it.
Maybe they'll improve.
I don't know.
Maybe.
Anyway, if you so direct, we still have another form to put together, that it's a state form that we have to put together, but we can send it to Karen to be published for next week's paper. And that the public hearing and final approval is scheduled for the first meeting in March on the 7th. You've got some time if you want to extend this, but right now, this is our best shot and our best estimate of what the budget for next year should be like. This is our 6th budget meeting, so I think we've been doing our due diligence here.
Do we have anything that shows the fund balances now and what they're gonna be at the end of next year?
At the end of next year, those were the sheets that we talked about last week.
Are they in this here?
Not in this as a budget, but they are in budget reports that we can produce for you.
And like our bank accounts, how much they have in them, the money that's invested and all that stuff, how much money we have?
Yes, sir, we have that. And in fact, now that we've got our accounts cleared up, I can finally go back to the banks and start talking to them from the standpoint of what we can do to improve our investment portfolio. Right now, if we didn't do anything different, we have interest income showing for $84,000.
Right.
And that's just by making, that's picking off the low hanging fruit.
17.
Huh?
Was 17.
Yeah, it was less than that even. I think it was around 14. It was so little was that we hardly even acknowledged it in budgeting. So I mean, that's a big chunk of money right there.
I'd take it. I appreciate your diligence, everybody. Everybody worked hard out, I know. I appreciate it. Recognize it.
Last year's budget was kind of a, try to lasso what was really out of control. This year, I think that we've made huge steps in improving our financial management. And that improvement isn't so much from the standpoint that we were spending money willy-nilly. It's rather that we have the ability to now analyze our expenditures and analyze our revenues from the standpoint of where we can make improvements on a program by program basis. And I don't think budgeting for us is going to get any easier as far as the actual revenues are concerned. One of the things that we've done through this process is recognize that it wasn't as great as we all thought, because we had money lumped into general accounts that kind of crossed over in certain areas. I mean, for instance, if we are going to do things in any particular utility, we need to recognize whether we need to raise revenues or not. We know that the electric, or not the electric, the sewer utility is going to have a major increase, which obviously is not a feature of this budget. As I said before, we'll do a budget amendment for that. That budget amendment will come with revenue increases, significant revenue increases. But again, that's going to be something that we need to handle independently coming up in the spring and summer of this year.
Are the 16, 17, and 18 expense and revenue, are those hard numbers or are those budget numbers? Is that what the actual, is that what the
16,
actual was?
16, 17, and 18 are actuals. Something that we added to this budget format, by the way. We didn't have that kind of stuff with the format that we have right now in the past.
What you got, Scott?
So according to these numbers, we're 450,000 over budget right now. For 19,
For 19,
year to date,
no.
or over revenue. We got more expenses than revenue so far.
Which sheet are you looking at?
The
Pink?
green and the pink, last page.
Well, again, the projection numbers,
I'm not projected, I mean, year to date.
year to date, I'm showing expenditures, 9,855,000 and a budget of 10,285,000, and that includes a lot of transfers that we did to make corrections in the budget. I don't have it showing the green here. The green is budgeted at 949 and 9680. Again, a lot of that is reflective of doing transfers and getting different accounts set up.
But your transfer money doesn't make you less money at the total, it just puts it in a different fund. If that's the total of everything, it looks to me like we have $10 million worth of expenses and $9.5 million worth of.
We're also showing in this budget, more revenues as it relates to the bond issue, for instance, which was not budgeted before. And it transferred for those kinds of expenditures. You got one too, don't you? Or is that, no, that's for next year, yeah. One of the things that's really different about where we started out this year is the fact that we're making a commitment on this bond issue this year as opposed to next year. Did you get your question answered?
Let's work through it.
That week went around the barn.
What are you seeing for numbers? I don't have the sheets. We can do it up here.
But I mean, even for budget 20, that's 17 million revenue and 12 million expenses. That $6.5 million water project money is included in that 17 million. How much of that 12,000 is part of that 6.5 million? Or how much of that 12 million, that 6.5 million? How much of that 6.5 million are we gonna spend in? You follow what I'm saying? We're showing the 6.5 million in our revenue for 2020. But how much of that expenses are we showing in 2020?
What'll happen is it'll get transferred to a project fund.
But
As an
I'm
expense.
total numbers at the end, it doesn't matter whether it's transferred in, transferred out, moved from this fund, moved from that fund. These two numbers right here is all the monies in or out of everything. That they're in them two numbers, so it doesn't matter where they're at here. This is the end number. Our total budget for expenses for 2020 is 12,824,510. Is that correct?
For the end of
For
2020?
2020, that's our budget of expenses for 2020, right? Total,
That's correct.
100%.
That's correct.
And our revenues is 17,345,375. That's 100% of revenues.
That's right.
And that's got, the 17 million's got the 6.5 million in it.
That's right.
Okay. So if you take the 6.5 million out of that number, you're at 10,800,000.
6.5 million from 17?
Is that
11.
6.5 from 17.4?
Okay, so
It's 10, it's almost 11.
Almost
Okay.
11. Okay.
So we're showing 11 million of revenue and almost 13 million of expenses. There's a $2 million gap there. Is part of this 12 million, is 2 million of that 6.5 million gonna be expended out in 2020?
The expenditures are 12 million and you're saying 11. We still have also the 2 million related to the bond, the street bond. So,
But that's in this number,
That's a
and that's
trend.
in this number.
and that's that's not yet expended though. It's a transfer into a project account that will be expended. So you're actually talking about $1 million less, not $1 million more.
But I think your question is, I think one of your questions is, how much did we budget for sewer plant expenses out of that 6.5 million?
Yeah.
And the answer is 0.
Okay, so if you take 6.5 million from 17, you're at 11
You wanna know
million.
why the numbers don't
And we
matter.
got 12,800,000 in expenses. We're budgeting more expenses than we are revenues for the year 2020 by 1,800,000. Where's that 1,800,000?
Capital improvements for which
That's in that number.
no, I'm talking about other capital improvements too.
But where's the money gonna come from?
We already have that money from the standpoint of the bond, which is coming forward, the CBDG. That's a $600,000 grant
But it's in the revenues of this already.
yet to be expended.
No, not the $2 million in the street revenue will actually bring in this year. So it'll be, it's not, the revenue for the streets is not showing in next year. It's in this year. So if we do a $2 million worth of streets next year, we'll show that expense next year, but not show the revenue next year.
Because it's coming in.
In other words, it's in different years, so the numbers
Yeah.
are staggered out.
Right.
I couldn't say it right. That's what's going on here. We're receiving it this year, spending it next year.
I understand what he's saying, though, if you took the 6.5 million off, then the
Yeah.
numbers should balance, because
Yeah.
you're spending in a different fiscal year.
Right.
And that's where if you go back to the sheets that we produced for you last week, you'll be able to see, just on basically one page, the changes in revenues, or the fund projections from year to year, and you'll be able to see that income and out, and it shows the revenues and expenses and the transfers by fund. So you get a clear snapshot over the years how those funds will change. Got there?
I guess for me, it would be easier to read and to see what actual numbers are if you left them big numbers out. Because when they're in this year and going out this year and coming in this year and not gonna be gone till this year, it makes the numbers look good. You can put them wherever you want each year and make the numbers look good, but it doesn't give you exact numbers.
And you have that in your operating accounts. Like I said, in the general fund, for instance, we were about to break even. You can look at, all of the utilities, are making money compared to their expenditures, with the exception of gas. We're kind of close there, but we also know that we got some metering problems with that small increase that we had in the rate. And we hope with improvements in the metering that we will actually be in the positive there. Those FAD accounts, what I mean by FAD accounts, if you just look at the first page of the police department as an example, all of those are operating costs. And you sum up all these operating costs and operating revenues, and you get down to, again, for the general fund, page 7, you see the totals right there. And as I explained before, there's more, there's a projection of more expenditure that's not real. If you look at year-to-date versus the budget of 19, year-to-date is $1,668,000 and the budget of $2,044,000. You can do that with the road use tax fund. You can do that. Let's go to a utility account. Page 21 is the water. Under water distribution, you see the water plant is where we've stopped doing water plant because we no longer have it. But the next down there, you see the water distribution department. You see water distribution operations totals of 300. And then you also have to look at the water accounting department, which is where you have water costs that come over to, say, City Hall as an example. So you put those two together. And you see that on page 23, you have an operation total effectively of $905,000. That $905,000 is offset against a revenue of $1,205,000. And as I indicated before, we're going to be paying this
Shrinking account.
the sinking account out of this so that in fact the water will be effectively at a break even. But it's those operating accounts is where a lot of the money is and where we actually look at it from a standpoint of non-capital improvement. You can see it in the sewer department on pages 24 and 25.
Can I make a suggestion? If you go to we give you 3 sets, right? And one of them shows you the fund with the departments in them without going through every line item. And it might be a much easier thing to look at when you're having this discussion.
Not the pink and green copies, not the gold, it would be the middle set.
The lavender,
Lavender and
Maybe it's white or
or is it white?
lavender, I don't.
Gold,
lavender and gold.
gold and lavender, gold's expenses, lavender's revenue.
So one thing you can look at, for example, since Sean's here, I'll pick on him. In the general fund, you've got some police department expenses and revenues. And in the employee benefits fund, you've got some police department expenses and revenues, right? There are a few departments that cross funds. Most of them don't. But also what you'll see is that transfers called out as separate things. And you can also then very easily see where your project accounts are, so that you can begin to say, okay, I can see that in this project account, and that'll let you segregate some of those projects from your operations. Jerry, what are the big changes this year that are significant?
capital projects.
Streets, an investment in streets.
I mean, if you want to look at it from an operating standpoint, we already talked about these things. We've added money for the $150,000 for the housing incentive program. We started a sinking fund in the fire department for $51,000 and change for, we right now don't have it established as a sinking fund, but it's an expense in operations for the truck 3 years from now. Those are the big changes in our operating accounts. We've repositioned some of those. We put a little bit more in the energy efficiency away from community development. That actually was more of an accounting process as opposed to a change in expenditure pattern. There's a reason why we haven't, there's a clear reason why there's very little change between the budget of this year and the budget of last year in the general fund. We haven't done much to change those things. In fact, we actually turned the screws down a little bit when you take into account the fact that we had a 2% increase for wages for everybody. So where the money changes, where the big things are is those big projects that we're about to embark on.
On-bill financing,
That's another one of those big changes.
760,000 in expenses. 751,000 in revenues and 760,000 in expenses. Isn't that a time thing? How can you get it all back in 1 year?
So the revenues would be borrowed, we borrowed funds,
On a line of credit basis.
right? And the expenses would be obviously whatever projects we accomplish. And we didn't account for repayment in terms of revenues in this fiscal year. We may see some, but we didn't budget specifically for repayments there.
That'll be a money in, money out kind of deal. With probably a 1 year lag in it. But a slow repayment, it's not gonna come back at once, it'll be over assumably about a 10-year period of time. And our carrying costs are an eligible expense in the restatement.
It'd be nice if they could line these sheets up where the same category was on the same sheet, so you could just follow it across. You got one sheet that's got 4 lines and the next one's got 15. You gotta flip 3 pages to get the answer.
And now you understand why we are frustrated.
Scott?
Yeah, trying to. Is there any, we got any, anything in here for the building? What is that?
We did not put anything in there for building on the square budget, and that'll be one of those things that we anticipate doing, but it will approach it with an amendment type thing, depending on how because we don't know what the strategy is going to be yet, right?
Did we get more budgeted into the streets for salt? Laugh, it ain't funny.
We're gonna have to talk about that on.
We ain't running out next year.
Pothole patch. I want more in there for that.
We can fill them with sand or salt.
Oh, God. Danny's gonna do Salt 101 with you at the next council meeting.
Here, Mike. No, I'm ready tonight.
Are you ready tonight under reports? Okay.
That's a great Valentine's Day gift, thank you.
A little salt in the
Salt in the wound.
All I can
That's
never
so much
stop
fun.
giving.
All I can say is it's a good thing it warmed up.
Didn't last long.
It's gonna be 4 in the morning,
Good
so
luck.
didn't last.
Honey,
Were they?
oh, yeah,
Tap trees yet? You tap trees yet?
I've got 3 tapped, I've got 2 tapped. One of them's producing, the other's not so early. With the weather, the way it's been, it's a little early. Tried to convince Janice we needed a new cooker. It's only $3,000.
3,000. Oops. Happy Valentine's.
We need to make a motion. Okay. So,
Motion for what?
publish this. I'll make a motion that
We can't make a motion to publish this.
we can't?
It says final review. It's not on the agenda.
Well, we're gonna publish it if you have no other input, because we
haven't approved to publish it.
Well, we can have a special in 2 or 3 days, I guess.
I mean, I know it's just all in the wording, but it's not,
It is.
it's not on here to approve to publish it.
Do you feel you need to have a motion to do that? Or can it be done administratively? Otherwise, I'd ask for a special meeting to do this.
Does anyone have any issues with it? Nope. I didn't find nothing.
I got some questions. I'm gonna sit down with Brendan and go over them. I haven't had a chance. I don't know.
I thought that's what this meeting was for.
Well, I agree, but it doesn't say approve. I thought we couldn't do it if it wasn't on the agenda.
There's nothing legally that requires you to do that motion. I was just looking for some formal direction, but if you've given direction before without having motions, I mean, if you all feel independently good with this, then we'll administratively take the paper.
I do.
I feel good with it.
I don't like it.
You like it? You don't like it?
I just don't like, I think it needs to be approved. I don't like the.
Well, won't we have to approve the budget after it's published or not?
Absolutely. Yeah.
So,
Can it be changed after it's published?
Yeah, along the lines that we talked about, remember?
Yeah.
Can't add to, you don't want to take away.
You can only take away, you can't add. Can't raise that.
Take away or the ad side.
I guess I just figured they should know that you gotta have it on the agenda.
Agenda to approve it if it needs approved. I don't know why it's not on there that way.
who made the agenda?
Sandy did, but we all can take responsibility
Right.
for the fact that it didn't say vote.
As I recall, we've never had a motion to approve
We didn't.
that was published in the past.
We just,
It gets close, it gets published, and then it's approved.
Past practice.
What's the timeline?
Well, I think that it needs to be published next week if council is satisfied with it. We can have a special meeting as quick as Monday morning.
I need a holiday.
I don't care, but
What is it?
the city's not open Monday.
President's
Day.
We've met on holidays before, by the way.
What is it?
President's Day.
Day.
Got too many holidays now.
I guess I don't care. If that's what you guys wanna do, that's fine. You guys run the town. So
Publish it.
I don't think it's right, but that's just my opinion.
Well, I mean, if you have concerns about it, I'd like to see them addressed, but if there are concerns that are.
I don't think any concerns I have can't be changed after it's published. I just don't, if we've got the time to do it later, I don't know why we're ramming it through.
Two weeks from tonight would be the vote. To approve. Or no, I'm sorry, not 2 weeks from tonight. 3 weeks from tonight.
In other words, you're not really approving it, you're just publishing it and then approving.
The process requires a public hearing prior to you actually taking a vote of approval. And that's what the publication's all about, is just to give people effectively about 2 weeks.
And we can change it, we just get added to the.
You can't increase in programs or in the utilities, but you can reduce and you can move line items around. So you can add and subtract as long as it nets out within the program. At least the same, if not less. Shall we publish?
I just soon see the process get done as long as, maybe next time we do this, we put on the agenda, approve, publish.
You know, one of the things I was asking during this process was to get tentative approvals. I just kind of disbanded with it because you all didn't want to go.
It has to be published in the paper on the 27th. Because the budget is 10 and 20.
Right, well, it has to, we're trying to get it set up for the 7th to give us 1 week leeway. That's why it has to be published next week.
When's the public hearing?
It'd be the same night, the 7th.
Duh.
I don't have any questions, so.
As long as it can be
Right.
trimmed down.
Still have, you still have that opportunity.
I mean, it's, you gotta give the public ample opportunity to see it, so.
That's not to say that if you come up with an idea and you want to put it on the agenda next week, we can at least address it from the standpoint of what you want to do on the 7th. I mean, or if, you know, if you just want to bring it ahead of time to us on the 7th so that everybody knows what's going to be happening, that'd be fine too. You'll have effectively from now 3 weeks.
I mean, really all you're saying is that you're locking in the rates for all the utilities and
That's-
stuff, right?
Actually, the utility rates, we can't even raise, well, we can raise utility rates in different formats, but the real lock-in is all about the property taxes.
That 45 cents or whatever he's talking about, is that something that the tax assessor's doing?
45 cents.
You said the tax increase for next year?
The tax
Said it was
increase,
that sheet you gave us, we're
That-
going
17,
we're going.
17.4215. You said on top of that increase that we're doing for streets, there was another 40-some cents?
No, that's it. That would be the,
No, you said something about a 1.5%.
no, there were
if we hadn't, if we weren't gonna do the capital, the bond issue, if we weren't gonna do the bond issue, the rate increase would have went from 1406 to 1424. A 1.5% increase on that tax rate. A 1.2% increase. A 14-cent increase,
So what's the levy now?
1406.
We're raising it 317.
We're raising it to 14, or 1742, yeah, that's about 317. Or 317 or 20.
317, 387.
317.
That's what's on your sheet here.
317, 387.
Any other public comments? Gary, you got anything else?
No, sir. We'll publish this on this paper, Wednesday's paper.
Danny, you got anything?
Sure. Just want to go over some, I know salt's been a big topic here lately, so I just want to kind of go over what we've been doing as a city, where we're at. And then we also talked about brine, so going to brine would be a whole different process, so just the cover page I handed you there is just a, show you what we've used to date, the sand we've ordered, geomelt, of course, what we do is we order that from Smith Fertilizer and Green. They come down once we get the salt and the sand, make sure they come down and spray it. We lay it out, they spray it, and then we put it, and we push it back in, so that way it helps bring that salt down to that higher active temperature. It'll go down lower temperature to help with that. So we started the year about 60 tons of salt, and of course we purchased throughout the year here 285 ton for the whole year. We're setting about anywhere between 15 to 20 ton on hand right now. We have 25 ton being delivered tomorrow, about have 75 ton being delivered next Wednesday. So hopefully that next 100 ton will get us through the rest of the year. It should, I'm hoping, but so that's where we are. We work with Iowa DOT contract. We kind of work on there every year in May. DOT sends out a contract thing, and cities and counties can all get involved in that. So it's a mass buy. You can get a lower rate. So this year, last May, we bought into that as we forecast 175 tons. So we bought it at $74 a ton. So actually we've exceeded our purchase amount we said, but they don't cut us off. They continue to sell us at that. But it's been pretty, and that $74 a ton is delivered. I know I sent an email out earlier to you about how much it costs and that kind of stuff. But so there's kind of like where we're at right now, what we've used. Depending on what we're going. Any questions about that? Those 20s. Everybody, as far as like salt goes, the whole lower half of Iowa and the whole top half of Missouri are all in the same boat. We've all had the ISO issues. You know, been dealing with Independent Salt is where we get our contract from out of Kannapolis, Kansas. And they, you know, talking to the people there, have been there 27 years. It's one of the worst years they've had in a long time. So it's been a tough year on everybody having salt. People's buying, you know, going everywhere they can to try to find salt. County's buying their salt right now from, down Burlington at the river, down there on that side, so, and they're buying it at 174 a ton, so basically. about
174.
Yeah, 154 plus with delivery fee, so. So it's coming there, but, so that's kind of like where we're at on, salt and sand, mixing that. And this year is different. We talked about, sand, I know, previous years they haven't really used sand with the salt, so we've been mixing 2 buckets to 1 for sand and salt, make sure helping with sand and spreading it out and thin that out. So if we would've been mixing that, we've been out even a lot sooner. We really stressed it that way in there. I do want to talk about the brine. So I sent you an email out about the cost of a brine dispenser, and that's attached to the quotes in the back there you have. There's actually 2 brine dispenser quotes there, one for $6,400, and there's another one that's kind of equivalent with a different maker for $47.50. So those are the brine dispensers. That's the easy part. The hard part is if you're gonna have a brine dispenser, then of course you have to have the brine, right? So we went out to the DOT, the Iowa DOT out here. They basically Iowa DOT makes their own brine. They have their own brine machines, and they mix it out there. It's a science basically. They filter the water through the salt, and they take measurements of specific gravity and over time, and they basically depend on the specific gravity measurement, then tells what kind of temperature the salt will, the brine will work at. So it has to be just right before. And then once they make it just right in the holding tank, then they switch it to their storage tanks. And from the storage tanks, they put in, of course, into the traders and stuff. The traders, you see, when they use their brine, they actually spread the salt first, and they spread the brine over the salt, so that way they get a double action, and the brine helps hold the salt to the highways and the streets. So they reported, we actually had Iowa DNR was here yesterday trying to get salt from us. They're wanting salt, but DOT will not give them salt for Lake Wapello because they're holding on their own where they're at, so everybody's hanging on to what they have for salt and stuff. So. But here's a brine machine I quoted on there, so you have a copy of that quote. That brine machine makes the brine there. That whole system to set up the new brine, if we were to go to switch to where we wanted brine, you're looking about $26,000 right there to have a brine machine.
What about the storage?
So, yeah, so that's including the 3,000 gallon storage tank. So we'd have to have a place for that machine and also a place to put a 3,000 gallon storage tank. And of course, we'd have a 300 gallon dispenser in the back with a 1 ton pickup to work on that. And that's kind of showed you the pictures of those in the email.
So are we gonna go through more salt that way too?
Yeah, so basically you'd use salt there to make that. So, again, depends what you want to do, but I know like Darren mentioned earlier, you probably wouldn't have to put brine on all the streets, but again, everybody wants brine, I'm sure, so it just depends where you're at, so.
Well, if you just went down the middle
Yeah,
of every street, you don't have to do both lanes.
right, so really if we wanted to switch to a brine operation, you're basically looking about a $30,000 investment for a dispenser and a maker.
Do you have to have any side building?
Yeah, you're gonna want to put it inside a building. That's, we were actually working with Iowa DOT today. They actually had, I think, frozen their line. We've been doing, our water people out there helping with their water today. So, you'd have to have it indoors if you want to work, do all that stuff. So
Put it up the lake.
this is actually an automated one. You can see down the bottom right, which says start and stop, but it has the measurements where it takes the measurements for specific gravity and makes all that stuff. You can also add in, where I talked about too, you can change your brine where you can add in calcium or magnesium chloride, and that way you can change it. You can drop it down to like 25 below. So, but again, that's more cost, so you can buy that stuff in 5 gallon buckets or drums and mix that in there too to make it even different. So,
Do we have anywhere that we could put this without building another building?
Lake,
well,
Anything at the lake?
the water plant possibly. So
I'll have to.
we could be a big brine
How
maker.
much?
There you go.
It's already there. Danny, how much does a 3,000 gallon, how much does a 3,000 gallon tank spread? I mean, how much?
Well, in the email I sent you, I talked about that. So it basically takes, it's eight loads of 50 gallons per lane mile. So it's 50 gallons per lane mile to spread brine. So divide the math for 3,000 gallons, whatever, kind of. They take 8 loads for 22 miles. So 8 times 300 would be what? That's 2,400. Yeah, 2,400 gallons of brine to cover our streets.
That's doing both
One lane.
sides. That's one lane.
Yeah. Or you say in the middle, whatever it is. So.
On this spray apparatus on the back, can't you tip a couple put horns up on it. put a
Yeah,
couple
it'll actually do
nozzles in
curves,
it.
there's different ones, so.
I mean, our streets are only 18 foot wide.
On some of them, right, yeah, so there's different ones, you get different, things on there, so it's just different sprayers that are out
I mean, you
there.
could spray 3/4 of the street to go in one direction.
Right. So.
If you drive a little bit faster, you can stretch it.
Let you get the code, so. So I just wanted to kind of give you.
How much is magnesium chloride? How much would it take to mix in with 300 gallons to get down to -25 or -20?
I didn't get that calculation yet, but you can, the DOT's not using it. I asked them about that, calcium chloride and magnesium. They're not, they're just been using that. And when they said they use a mixture of that plus the salt, and they've been getting what they want.
And they're out of salt.
Right. Huh?
And they're out of salt.
Well, I
Their
think
budget.
they're out of money, but they have salt on hand, so they're just not buying
They're
anymore.
gonna wind up busting their budget.
Right, so, they're trying
For
to,
all intents and purposes, even if we did decide to go to this, we probably wouldn't have it installed this year to do us any good.
right, yeah, no, it'd be, well, there's a spreader on hand, and we have a spreader installed in 3 days, but Brian is the.
The question is on an annual basis, how often would we use it?
Right. I think we'd probably use it if we had it. Because it's a pre-treat, it's not after the fact, it's a before the fact. Because if you use magnesium chloride, it has a 24 to 48 hour residual effect, so you can put it on ahead of time and it'll still work.
As long as you don't have rain in it to wash it off.
Traffic's
Right.
what kind of keeps it activated but I think when you talk about your new sewer plant, running salt and water or sand.
Right.
Do you have a sense for how long it would take to make 3,000 gallons of brine?
3 hours.
Yeah, it's, this machine, like this one right there that shows, it says that if we're pumping water 50 gallons per minute, we can make 1,050 gallons an hour of brine.
One person can do it?
Yeah. So, the key is, having storage capability and using it. I mean,
Why do you need a 100-foot hose and a spray wand?
why do you need her?
Yeah,
Well-
you gotta get out of the truck and spray wand.
Actually, they said from the truck, you can spray different areas, whatever, it's just an option. It's just- They say,
Sidewalks and square.
yeah, there you go, yeah, you can do stuff like that,
You've seen
so.
the guys spraying weeds in the ditches.
They said the municipalities use that a lot, I mean, they report it, they like it and do that stuff, so. it's
They
just-
walk out the door and
Yeah.
let her eat.
You gotta have it in the caddy, you don't need a 100-foot hose.
Well, probably also if you're walking parking lots or doing city lots and,
Yeah, in a separate truck.
so it's just,
Would that little white S10, would that,
yeah.
Have we got a truck to put it on?
Yes, I mean, we could, basically like the streets truck right now that we put the new blade on, you could put that on back. The sprayer that I quoted was for a tonner truck to put on the back of a 1-ton pickup, 8-foot bed. So, but you can do a flatbed like that one, or, we have those too. So,
Like you said, we can get the sprayer right away, but the mixer,
mixing the brine, yeah.
it's gonna take a while. So
Like there, I was curious if you could put the pump on it, if you could reverse the lines and do a valve system to where you could use the pump on the tank to circulate to do the mixing.
That's what we was
Right,
talking
and
about earlier.
You can't, it really takes, like, there's just that mixture, and I know Chris went home, after we went out there, I tried to make it, right?
Yeah, because I was like, I can use less salt because the amount of salt that goes into the brine is less than you just hand spray. So I thought, I'll go home, I'll try this out, just see if I can mix it in a bucket. And so I didn't know you needed a crusher, right? The crusher gets the sand fine enough
Yeah.
so that it mixes. And so I ended up with a chunk of rock salt at the bottom and water and glazed my driveway. My wife was real pleased about it.
Apparently it's not just a simple
When you
recipe.
found out you needed the crusher, you should have got you a hammer and a
Yeah, well,
couple rocks.
it was after I glazed the sidewalk that I found out I needed the crusher, so this is why I'm not in charge, by the way.
One of the guys at work was talking about this, and he said he was doing some research, and a lot of vodka distilleries use their runoff and their waste, spray it on the streets. So I would get a hold of DCDC and get us, find us a vodka distillery. We have a place for our corn and
That'd go good.
I just wonder whether, there's a vodka distillery in, right north of, can't remember the name of the town right now, just north of Quad Cities, right on the river. That's it. Because a riverboat takes up. I just, LeClaire has a distillery, yep. LeClaire was Iowa,
Oh, it's,
LeClaire, not a.
that's where.
So like the mayor said, basically, we did blow our budget this year we had a $20,000 budget for, winter street service. We're gonna blow that this year. So the key is next year we'll buy again cheaper in summer and try to get a bigger storage going into the year and have it there.
And next year we may not have any.
Yeah, exactly. So it's a,
It'll keep though.
yeah, well,
Yeah.
keep her dry.
So I think this is more of a consideration.
Right, yeah, I just wanted to bring it to you,
info.
so it's just, you
Just
know,
info.
to really to go to Brian, it'd be about a $30,000 investment, and then,
What was that, Jeff? You told me there was one on for sale, a used once in a Tumblr for 2,000?
yeah, it was $2,000
spreader,
Spreader.
about half price.
Quick.
Well, Tumble uses it,
They treat the bridges with it.
Bridges.
The bridges and, hospital route.
but they get theirs from the state, but they probably help the state with the state highway going through, would be my guess. They give them the stuff if they'll spread it, I reckon.
And I tried to buy it from him, I went out there, you know, talked to Roger, and, you know, he said he had to get higher authority to sell, but it probably wasn't gonna work, because they were short, they're out. He couldn't keep up, he couldn't make it fast enough this year. He's, basically, they had a guy in there full-time making brine all day. That's all he's doing. So he's got a lab out there, that's what he's doing, so. It's quite an operation, you can go out and see it if you want to eat. They like to show it to you. And that's another thing, that's just one option, 24,000. I do have a vendor that is gonna contact me that sells them to the Iowa DOT, sells what they have out there, but looking at their stuff's all stainless steel and nice, and I bet it'd be a lot more. I bet it's gonna be more expensive, I'm sure. So, but this is a different thing. So I just want to show you that one. Any questions or?
Thanks for the info.
Chris?
Just a couple of reminders. Next Wednesday, I think I've heard from 4 of you that you plan to attend and one that can't up in Ankeny at the Iowa Association of Municipal Utilities. Looks like we're gonna have about 30 people there. I think it'll be a really good discussion, and it's gonna be all focused on this inclusive financing program, right? And how it's a time to really get into the details on will it work or not work, and how will it work, and I think you'll find it informative, and we've got people there that will push back and say, well, what about this, and what about people that are building people, I mean, the practitioners, scientists. I think you'll get something out of it. So thank you for being interested, and if any of you have interest, so the meeting is from 1 to 4. There will be folks available both before and after. So if any of you decide, hey, I wouldn't mind going out to lunch or supper and getting a little more information, just let me know ahead of time and I'll make sure that that's arranged, okay? Then the other thing is Cadmus will be back next Thursday. We're gonna do a short council meeting, hopefully from 5:30 to 6:30, and then follow that with the second community meeting on the energy independence planning. They're gonna come back and present their findings so far and try to get community input, feedback. So we've set that up so they're gonna be right after a council meeting, so that if you wish to be here, you can.
Do we have to have an agenda for that?
We will, yes, and we're working on that. It'll be a very basic agenda, but like 5 items. And we'll have an agenda also for, so if you,
Can we not just tack it onto the agenda for the meeting and just make it?
That's what you do, but, I mean, the idea here would be is that you put a time limit on the regular meeting, because they're gonna start at 6:30.
Right.
and go for at least 2 hours.
Yeah. Probably 2.5.
2.5.
The other thing is, we need an agenda for Wednesday's meeting as well, so if you, I don't know if you've made your decision yet, but if not, Darren, you're planning on being there, right? So one of you will have to open and close the meeting on Wednesday.
Well, depending on people going to lunch or supper too.
How
We
many?
may have to start the meeting
Early so far is what I've.
So if you get 2 or 3 wanting to go to lunch or supper, that's gonna have to be in
Long
there.
meeting.
And we can, and if we find that there's an interest, we can find a way to separate it out. We'll make it work.
You got anything else?
I haven't heard back from our prospective property. Just give you an update. Nothing else.
Have we sent out any more letters for abandoned houses or derelict houses or any more of that yet?
Not yet. No, but I do,
Any updates on what we've done?
not really, no. No, not right now. I know that there's been 2 that have moved forward on their own, but I don't have,
We haven't followed up with a second letter or nothing like that.
have not.
Chief?
I don't have much to report other than I think Alyssa's time is winding down at the academy. Sabrina's getting ready to leave here for a couple months for pregnancy, yeah, and, otherwise, that's about all I got, but, Dalton's doing a real good job above and beyond, so.
What are you gonna do with Sabrina being gone?
I don't know.
Cover it internal.
Yeah.
Short-handed one.
I think we'll be all right. If not, I'll let you guys know.
Fire chief?
We're doing good. Still dealing with weather-related emergencies. We had a house fire Saturday night. 2 or 3 of us fell on the ice, but everybody was okay. It's treacherous out there. Other than that, we're doing good.
You get some of the cleats for your boots, so it's nice.
Well, then you get in the truck and you're trying to keep your foot on the foot feeder of the brake, and that slides off, so. It's kind of a no-win situation.
You got plenty of padding. You got plenty of padding.
The older I get,
One
the thinner my
cons-
padding gets.
One concern that I was approached with on the Saturday night fire was the fact that the fire water tower at the end of the Beowulf Road, not all the trucks could hook to it to get water.
No trucks can hook to it because rural water pulled the hydrant out and nobody knew about it. All that's there is a clean out, 1.5 inches. So we had to come into town to get water off a hydrant at Michael's. That's as close as we had. Because when I was out there, somebody said, well, somebody put plastic fittings on the hydrant. I go, well, who put plastic fittings on it? So we got back to the station, I went out and looked, and sure enough, rural water's pulled the hydrant, and all there is a clean out. So that's what the banjo
Is
fitting.
there a reason for that?
You would have to take that up with them, because I have a letter saying that this wasn't gonna be an issue, and they would maintain them. So I'm thinking their version of maintaining is they just pull the hydrants.
Have we got other water towers that they've done the same thing?
Well, we didn't know they did this one, so when things kind of calm down, we're gonna take a little walk, drive around, see if we've got any others that have been pulled.
I guess we probably need to somebody touch base with them and find out what's going on, because if you think there's a hydrant, you drive 10 miles that way to the tower, and there isn't, you're gonna drive 30 back for water, that's.
Our only other hydrant off of the tower would have been Flores Highway, and I wasn't gonna send anybody even remotely down Nut
Is
Hatch.
that a county issue to touch base with them?
I don't think they have to tell anybody what they're doing.
No, but I mean.
The township trustees
oversee that. So is that trustees need to talk to rural water or?
No, like I said, I don't know if even the supervisors have a say in it. I think they can pretty much do whatever they want.
Okay.
And this was brought up over a year ago because we started hearing rumors that they were gonna stop maintaining the hydrants and we wouldn't be allowed to use them. They were gonna padlock them and everything else. Well, I got a letter saying that no, they were gonna maintain them, everything was gonna be okay. Then this surprise, so I didn't know that was pulled because that's where I was sending the trucks. In fact, one of my guys stopped by the fertilizer plant and got a couple buckets of 5 gallons of potash and throwed it down so nobody would slip and fall around there. And that's what we found, the banjo fitting.
I think because of backflow, they're worried about, that's a big thing on the hydrants right now, is the backflow into the systems.
Oh,
So they're, maybe pulled their system with the backflow, especially at a tower, they can't, so, because you have to control them or lock them or know who's gonna be in them, so that's a big issue with hydrants. That's why we don't allow anybody to, like, we don't want, we don't even, I don't like to have Jeremy pull his jetter truck off a hydrant, really need to just get it from the bottled water side here. And so really fires for fire, but basically for fire.
I know we still have access to the hydrant south of town because we used it not that long ago.
Better go on a drive and check them all.
Waplo rural, I don't think has been a problem, but Rathman's always been a concern.
I know when I was in Wisconsin, the rural areas, they'd get draft hydrants out of ponds.
We've got 5 of those, but you gotta get to them.
Right.
I've got 2 hydrants, so I had it was the homeowner, asked me what it'd take to put it in. I says, well, I've got 2 old hydrants sitting at the station. He says, well, I'll donate the digging. I says, well, you have to get approval to connect to that. So I'm gonna still, like Danny said, it's gonna be the backflow. And I think they could settle that if they just put a fence around it and just gave us a key so that we get access. So we wouldn't be the ones in there other than them.
They got backflow preventers and all that kind of stuff they could put on too.
But that's what the story is about that. That's why we had to come in town for water.
Council updates.
I don't have any comments.
Motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn.
All in favor?
Aye.